Hello everyone, welcome to our Let's Play series of Disco Elysium. This is Colonel RPG as usual, and I'm very happy that you chose to join me today as we don't pray to our to this statue. It's not a statue, it's a Innocence Dolores, or her innocence is an innocence. But rather I wanted to say it's like a does the game actually tell us what this is? No. Mother of Humanism is who she is. And the creator, if I remember correctly, of the moralism system thingy. She's the first innocence, if I remember correctly. And Kim holds her in reverence, apparently, because he did a cross-shaped X. Yeah, as if it's the wrong way around. Did the X-shaped cross? That's the right way around. And we have these checks. This is to ourselves. Let's ask ourselves, how did I know this is the mother of humanism? Despite the damage you've done to yourself, the title appears lodged in your hippocampus. This is Her Innocence Dolores Day, the innocence of humanism, internationalism, and the welfare state. Perhaps the most famous human being ever to have lived. No amount of Commodore Red can wipe her sad smile from your brain thing. It has survived the deluge and haunts you still, and will haunt you forever, as it haunts all men. I think this reference here to the because she's the mother, she's the innocence of humanism, which I believe is the what I said before, the moralism, or the essence of moralism anyway, but specifically related to internationalism and the welfare state. Those two things only work together when you're analyzing the evolution of liberalism that started, well, very much. Well, liberalism really started. It probably is associated with humanism in real life history, I should say. But I wouldn't know. I can't actually comment on that too much or at all. But specifically in regards to internationalism and welfare state, internationalism, at the end of the day, really is it's often criticized as being a sort of imperialism, but that's not really what it is at its core. It does serve the purpose. Well, I say it's not really what it is at its core because it's very distinct from proper imperialism that comes from an age like from the medieval age or even the modern era that still had a lot of empires, and of course a lot of empires existed, but the imperialism was still in real life existed for a long while. I'm not saying that it didn't. What I'm saying is that the internationalism in a liberal system, and when I say liberal, I mean as opposed to not feudalistic, a system where capital can flow freely. That's what liberal means, historically speaking. Of course, it can mean different things in different countries. I think I've had this conversation before, but specifically, neoliberalism is distinct from liberalism, and that has to do with the introduction of the welfare state, or not really the introduction, but sort of the propping up of the welfare state as a means of, well, to put it in as unbiased. Well, unbiased is probably not the word, but sort of neutrals in as much of a neutral way as I possibly can. The welfare state is a good way to balance out the downsides of liberalism or internationalism and what comes from allowing the free movement of capital across different strata and across different countries, specifically here across different countries, but it doesn't have to be across different countries. It still works in a microcosm. Maybe it works even better in a microcosm to show the limitations of liberalism, or at least in regards to economic liberty, I suppose. So the welfare state is introduced, which is, as you probably understand it to be, because it's a fairly well-known term, I suppose. It's just basically, if you go unemployed, maybe you get unemployment benefits, and maybe you don't have, you don't have to pay for your cancer treatment. or maybe you, when you are old, you get a little bit of money, so you can live off of that money, and instead of having to work on your old age. And that's really just a bandage over. Well, it's not a bandage. Let's put it in neutral terms, Colonel. It's a way to mitigate the problems of liberalism, because it at a certain point, specifically throughout the first century of the Industrial Revolution, and not just, but and also past that, but specifically there, you can see really a lot of the problems that exist without a welfare state just crystallizing, especially in the British Empire. But of course, a lot of those problems never got fixed, and that's why I was saying bandage, because it is a bandage, and instead of having a system that doesn't require those bandages, the innocences, I'm sure, and I'm here drawing parallels with real life as well, but the innocences, I'm sure, make sure that their systems don't fall apart and have welfare state, so that their internationalism and humanism doesn't get them killed, the innocences. And by killed, I mean guillotines. I'm talking guillotines. That's what I'm talking about. And so they have the welfare state to prevent the guillotines. That's the best cure. It isn't the best cure, but it's a cure. No amount of Commodore Red, reads my encyclopedia, actually. That's my skill that I'm doing right now. Can wipe her sad smile from your brain thing. It has survived the deluge and haunts you still, and will haunt you forever as it haunts all men. So we have. This could be literal, but I think it is sort of again another parallel to real life, but I can't really put it. I can't really say what it is a parallel to. So I won't say it. But as it haunts all men, and here, men, I am willing to ignore, or I'm willing to believe that it is written as people rather than capital M, men. Although in English you don't capitalize men. No, that's mostly a thing that works in Portuguese, not in English. You don't do a capital M, men, to note all people. You just say people. But it might be also a stylistic choice, because here, I mean, it's an encyclopedia, and there's a bunch of stylistic choices in this game, as we all know. But yeah, it's society. She shaped society, and not just, I mean, her in specific maybe, but the whole institution that she made, or she created, or at least served to prop up. What exactly is an innocence? I've read a book, but it was fuzzy. The book wasn't fuzzy. Your memory of it is fuzzy. The encyclopedia says the highest category of historic individual, an embodiment of the world spirit. A tyrant? In a way. An innocence is elected to office by the founding party. A precedent that has taken place a mere 6 times in the entirety of history. The legal system of the Real Belt is built from the ground up to accommodate innocentic rule, should it coincide with our time. An innocence is infallible. The decisions made by one are not decisions. They are inevitabilities. What would have happened anyway, only accelerated, packed into decades instead of centuries. An innocence is a continuous, compressed event, a sacred human being. It is an honor and a glory to live when one is in office. What a curious system here. What a curious system. What is curious is the holy reverence to her. I think she might have been mentioned already in the game by another name. But it was a jokey character that I think might have been written under different circumstances to this dialogue, maybe. She wasn't, or the reference that the game made to her that I'm about to say, wasn't the reference that I was thinking of, wasn't the thing of real life. that I was thinking of before when I was talking about over here that it haunts all men. But so bear with me here, because I might be wrong, obviously. But this is at least a little bit more educated than my guess would have been back here. I think her smile, her sad smile that haunts all men, a sacred human being, an inevitability. She's a metaphor in the as the from the game's writers to the invisible hand of the market. And that's why I said that it has already been referenced like that. But I think it does break the theme, or the thematic consistency, at least, of the game. At least the tone, for sure. If she is indeed that, it breaks it because it shows that the authors are willing to be blunt with their analogies and with their satire. But at the same time, they are very coy in other places regarding the same exact objects of satire or analogy. And I think that, the game has done that already a couple of times, so I'm willing to think that might be because this game just took forever to write, and they can't think of all these super detailed and sort of metaphysical, or not, metatextual is the correct term, all these metatextual implications of the way they treat a certain thing, especially when it comes to a game like this that already has an enormous metatextual content. So yeah, and because it's probably a small team writing, it's just it's normal that there's stuff like that. Although I wish there weren't, stuff like maybe the game treating the invisible hand of the market here as this whole thing that is inherent to the setting and all that, and then the other guy just blatantly referencing it in his own way. I'm talking about that drunk that we met outside. Is one in office now? No, we are alone, says the encyclopedia. When did she rule? 300 years ago, in the wake of the discovery of this Isola, the Insulindian, by explorers from the continent of Mundi. She is, among other things, the innocence of interisolary travel and the connected world. What else do I know about her? Many things. She was a woman of the court, the wife of an influential marquise, and eventually the principal advisor to Irene la Navigateur, queen of Suresne, modern-day Sur-la-Clef. Also, that she was gorgeous beyond beauty. Well, if she was an inevitability, then I guess all of her should be considered the perfectest. Draped in ancient sadness as our inland empire. Are you sure you want to remember this bit of historic trivia, standing under her long, slender form like this, dwarfed? Yes, says our horrific necktie. Big bummer. Boring history. Gotta keep it light, man. Keep it moving. Get fucked up instead. Where's this coming from? The past, says our inland empire. It's a silo of sadness, fermenting. You should keep away. Fuck this pain, Bretagne. It's unhealthy, says our horrific necktie. No, I can survive. I'm good. I have a bunch. Okay, what else? Was she smart? Terribly, says our encyclopedia. Women of the court were expected to play both contract bridge and chess sufficiently well to prove an interesting challenge to a man. A similar grasp in matter of philosophy, theology, and science was encouraged. She was by all means a kept woman. Interesting. We have here the very undeniable evidence of patriarchy in this setting. It might be in reference... It might be in reference to the 300 years back in the day, but it's still... It does contextualize all the other aspects of patriarchy that we see throughout the game that are a lot more nuanced than this, evidently. Because it contextualizes a society that had at one stage this sort of level of judgment, as long as you're a challenge to a man, any man, because evidently, all men are very smart and good, and as long as you're a challenge to a man, you're good. You're terribly smart. She made the most of her position, says our encyclopedia, in the antediluvian court, a court visited by the most prominent thinkers and artists of the day. In secret, she was becoming the era's preeminent philosopher of the state, a scalpel, a piercing gaze. She was an almost preternaturally magnetic and intelligent individual. To her contemporaries, she appeared out of time, a messenger from the future of the species. We all fell in love with her, head over heels. Even before she was declared an innocence, her influence was tremendous. How come? It was her advice that Irene La Navigateur sponsored, or it was on her advice that she sponsored a number of voyages into the Pale, a costly, often tragic endeavor, ultimately vindicated by the discovery of the new world, a piece of reality you're standing on, or the piece of reality you're standing on. She was crowned 2 years after the first expedition returned, setting in motion what is widely considered the greatest era in history, the DeLorean era. Whoa. Whoa indeed, says our encyclopedia. When her innocence was declared and the queen she had advised for years fell on her knees before her, she was so overcome with emotion that her lungs started glowing in her chest. Bystanders reported golden filaments lighting the already sunlit chamber around her, clearly visible beneath her dress. Yeah, if it's... I'm pretty sure this is written to be unbelievable. And just like... legend. Because, well, she was probably the one responsible for this to have been written in the first place. I want more. As did we all, says our encyclopedia. The lands of Mesk and the Occident and even far-away Supramundi, altogether 21 of the 40 mondial nations of the time, immediately accepted Innocentic rule, even before her crowning. In a city called Advesperacit in Vespera Messina, her homeland. The name of the city means evening comes, but it happens on a winter's morning with the canals frozen and falling out of the sky. Slush falling out of the sky. She was dressed in a white and pearl dress on an emptied-out plaza with the crowd far away. Already her Terrier. I don't know what that means. The Secret Service... Oh, it's what that means. The Secret Servicemen of the Innocents were worried about an assassination attempt. What an interesting line. I don't care how she looked. I don't care. It doesn't hurt me. Oh, says our encyclopedia. She was insultingly beautiful. She was humanity's young mother. A perfect mother. It was as if her face and shoulders and hands were covered in a soft down and of underfeathers. You know this well, very well. Midwinter snow was beating the cobblestones around her. A small attaché of officials stood by as her Terrier placed a white gold wreath on her head. The crowning was mostly witnessed by Secret Servicemen. And then what? One of the men in this Secret Service killed her 22 years later. A young man who had come to suspect that Dolores Day was not entirely human, but something else. What? I ask. The encyclopedia says, something that had walked in our midst, watching us stumble for hundreds, if not thousands of years, until it decided to interfere in the course of our history. We were supposed to come up with this ourselves, the man was reported to have screamed at the innocents. Dolores Day was shot in the chest with a fowling piece 8 times. The man, thought to be insane, said he once touched her and her body had been unnaturally warm, like a furnace, and that sometimes while on duty he observed her forgetting to breathe for over 10 minutes. This inhuman quality was witnessed by many others as well, glowing lungs and all. It is commonly attributed to mass hysteria in religious psychology. Was there something terrifying about her? Terrifying is a term too emotionally charged for your semantic memory, or what remains of it, but our Inland Empire cuts in, terrifying, it's a simple word. She was bad for humanity and you shouldn't have started thinking about her. No. Was there something bad about her? I want to know. You already do, says our encyclopedia. Although she is often considered to be the greatest human being to ever live, there was something ominous about Dolores Day. Constantly surrounded by her Thurier, she was the most socially secluded and least self-aware of all the innocences. Some modern thinkers would consider her a war criminal for the campaigns she waged against the Mesk state, and then there were resettlement programs. What happened? The Mesk state tried to detach itself from Innocentic rule. Parts of the world were... This is, I mentioned before the British Empire. But, this feels familiar, doesn't it? Anyway, it continues. The Mesk state tried to detach itself from Innocentic rule. Parts of the world were experiencing whiplash from accelerating into secularism. Her mandatory education programs and mass resettlement of upstream Magrite were problematic as well. Dissenters were suppressed by a military force she called the Army of Humanity, suggesting those who fight against it are not part of humanity, says our rhetoric. Good call, rhetoric. She adored chess, yes, but also military war games. Dolores Day often holds a tiny tin soldier between her index finger and thumb in icons such as this. She was also blonde, and the blondest woman you have ever seen, with green eyes the color of the Pisantic mare interregnum. That's the internal... interregnum means intermediate. That's C. Pisantic C. Sure. Little is known of her Marquis husband. It's as if he vanished from history after completing his role, which was to introduce Dolores Day to the court, or to court. In conclusion, yes, there is something lonely, paranoid, and even terrifying that people seldom mention, but feel when they think of her. Kim says, Lieutenant Yefreitor, you've stood there for over 5 minutes. Yeah, actually probably like 15. The lieutenant's calm voice echoes in the cold air of the church. What are you thinking of, if I may ask? I'm just gonna yell, war criminal! I don't know about that, says Kim. He takes his glasses off to clean them. It was a different time. A different war. No, the time doesn't excuse the person. They're still scum. It's not like no. Either way, he says, this church, the coast in general, we shouldn't linger here. This isn't a good place to get lost in. We should conclude our business and move on. An imperceptible tinge of fear, our empathy notes. The lieutenant is afraid of the church. He does not know why, but he is. So I can reconstruct the cracked glass. And I want to. It's visual calculus over there. I'm going to turn away and leave. Oh, we got a thing over there. Let's first look at our visual calculus here, because it's important. Not there at all. Okay, so we should be able to have some added by our glasses, as it turns out. I think only our glasses, maybe? Was there in our tools, maybe the other thing? This is really inscrutable, honestly. It's not the greatest of systems to be able to have to do this every time, because I just don't remember. So in the tools was the no, that's not it. Is interact, right? Where's our ledger? Is our our ledger is in our hands. Sure, that works. Okay, we got a thing over here. Hey, Her Innocence Dolores Day liked little figurines, right? Says our reaction speed. Liked holding little men between her fingers, remember? What? You have the Headless Fallen Rider figurine. You should give it to her. Win her back. This task is... No. Forget about this. Shut up. No, it would have been beautiful. Really tiny, thoughtful, clever. Nope. Shut up. We're not doing it. We're doing the other thing. Reconstructing this. 58. That's pretty good. And I better not upgrade my skill right now. I better fail if I fail. And I don't. Ooh. That's the whole figure right there. That's also the end of the episode, because we're out of time. So for right now, I'm Colonel RPG, and this has been Disco Elysium. I really hope you've enjoyed it. And if you did, go ahead and leave a comment, like the video if you want to see the next episode come out sooner rather than later. But above all, thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you next episode. Bye-bye.